Welcome. Thank you all for coming. This is really thrilling. I thought I would just start by introducing myself and my reason for doing this class, other than that Paul had the idea and invited me, made it happen. My imagination was captured by Zen Buddhism when I was 16 years old, senior in high school. And my first opportunity to practice was at the San Francisco Zen Center around 1966 with the great Zen master Shunryu Suzuki, who wrote a fairly famous little book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. He was a wonderful teacher and human being. And spiritual practice has been a part of my life ever since. In 2009, my wife Marge and I went to a retreat at Deer Park Monastery with Thich Nhat Hanh. And we fell in love with him and his teachings and the practice that he introduced us to, and with the community. You could just see that the monks and the nuns knew how to live in loving harmony. It was beautiful, and the lay practitioners that were there were also just delightful. And so we, at the end of that retreat, I asked, okay, so what do I do now? How do I follow up? And the answer was get involved in Sangha building. Sangha is a community of practitioners. And I understood right away what that meant. I grew up in the Unitarian Universalist Church, and our minister used to say, my being up here on Sundays preaching is not what it's all about. It's about what you do out there building the beloved community, and which is a phrase that he borrowed from the great civil rights leader, Martin Luther King. And Thich Nhat Hanh and Martin Luther King were friends. So Thich Nhat Hanh is known as Thai. He used that same phrase a lot. And Marge and I were ordained as members of the Order of Interbeing in Thich Nhat Hanh's practice in 2013. And we've been teachers and leaders in the Sangha ever since we first got involved. And I've also been involved in the scientific understanding of the birth and evolution of our universe, the evolution of the earth and life, and neuroscience, the more recent understanding we have of the human brain, and integrating that with this practice, which is 2,600 years old, this mindfulness practice, but which has been, adapted to the present times all along that way. So it's a marriage of the ancient and the new. And my fundamental goals in life are transforming my own suffering and forgetfulness into enlightenment and well-being, and helping others to transform suffering into enlightenment and well-being, for us as individuals, for the whole Earth community, and to participate in the fulfillment of human potential, and to just be a part of evolution, the evolution of everything. And the other thing that I care about is community building, building a beloved community. And I hope that this is a seed for community that's now beginning right here. My intention for this class, what I care about. I care about well-being of my loved ones, of other people, plants, animals, trees, land, beauty, the beauty of the earth, the oceans, the coral reefs, the mountains, the air we breathe, clear streams, all the wonders of life which nurture and nourish us and make life possible. So my intention for this class is to share with you the greatest treasures that I know of. Practices I've learned to transform suffering and generate happiness and well-being for us, our loved ones, and the whole Earth community. And I want to share with you tools and practices that you can use in your daily life. And give you some ideas about where you can get support for your own practice, because we all need support to do this. There's a lot of momentum in our culture that doesn't support mindful living. So a community of people who are dedicated to mindful living is really important to be a part of. Thai needed one, the Buddha needed one, so they needed it. The practice does bring me a lot of happiness, and it is a way I transform suffering on a daily basis. Class overview. We're going to use Thich Nhat Hanh's book, The Art of Living, which I can't recommend too much to you. I just recommend you get it. And it came out of the 21-day retreat in 2014 that he led at Plum Village, which is his monastery where he's lived most of his life in France. And that was just a few months before he had a stroke, and hasn't been able to speak and walk since then. So this was kind of the cream of 70 years of teaching, and it's it's not technical. It's written for regular folks to read, and there's 7 chapters in here, and we'll use those as our framework for this class. And so in the class, we want to share how mindfulness can be the art of generating happiness for ourselves and others, and share how mindfulness empowers us to acknowledge and deal with life's difficulties, and how mindfulness is the art of seeing clearly and understanding the wrong views that we have that generate suffering, and in the process to break free of those wrong views. So to liberate ourselves from our own misunderstandings is very much the goal here. So I want to provide you with the tools that you can use to support you in your quest to lead a more mindful, peaceful, and joyful life, and offer key practices that generate happiness and well-being to here's a 5-word summary of the practice. To stop, calm, rest, heal, and transform. So I love that. I remember when somebody said that and they just spit it out and ran by it, and I went, whoa, wait a minute, I heard that, come back. And it took me a few months to catch them and hear that again so that I got it. But stopping, calming down, resting allows us to heal, and the healing makes possible a transformation of us, of our consciousness, our way of experiencing ourselves and the world that is much more true and satisfying. And and I hope to empower you to establish a daily practice and find a community to support you in your practice. And the way the classes will be shaped is we'll have teaching like now, and then we'll have a guided meditation while we're sitting, and then we'll have a walking meditation, and then we'll have a chance for what we call deep listening and loving speech, a chance for us to share particularly how we're using the practice to make our lives better. And we'll have time for Q&A. So let me invite another sound of the bell. So what is mindfulness? I think mindfulness is the essence of what we are, who we are. It's attention. And what is I think it's our greatest capacity is our ability to give attention to what's happening. And we all do that, of course. We all have this capacity and we all use it. So what we're trying to do here is to cultivate this capacity for attention, deepen it, and the phrase that's used to describe this process is mindfulness, concentration, and insight. And mindfulness deepens to concentration, and this looking deeply gives us insight into ourselves, into the world, into the nature of our interrelatedness. Mindfulness is not a skill, it's a way of life. And it's to understand who we are and what it means to be alive on earth. It's a way of generating understanding our suffering, which gives rise to acceptance, love, compassion, and quality of life. I just wanted to share some of the ways that I've used the practice to transform my own forms of suffering. I don't think I'm alone in this, but I don't know how, sort of acutely me this habit is, but it's me anyway. I just have this tendency to replay unpleasant situations that happened. Somebody said something that really upset me, and long after it's over and things have, I could have moved on, I'm replaying that conversation. And this has gone on for lots of years. And then when I got into this practice, I'm sitting in meditation, and I start to replay one of these conversations that was painful. And then I kind of imagine this argument in my mind with this person who lives in another state now. It's really quite useless. And but I noticed what happened in me when I did that, because I was paying attention. And I noticed that as I started to replay that, my quality of life just shrunk down to almost nothing. And my stomach was starting to churn, and I went, wow, this really doesn't feel good. And being that aware of how I was generating the suffering for myself, I just naturally let it go. And then over time, that conversation comes up less and less often. So that's part of how we reprogram our unconscious. These things are inside of us, and they're seeds that manifest. And this is the news from neuroscience. When we let that happen, it reinforces it. And so as long as that gets to play in my consciousness, then it digs the groove deeper. And that suffering just gets stronger. And, by ceasing to engage in that, it gets weaker. And our brain actually prunes away neural connections that aren't being used. And so we have this ability to actually rewire our brains through mindfulness practice. So, we can reduce suffering, and we can generate happiness, and that becomes a habit. The habit of producing the suffering diminishes, and the habit of generating happiness and well-being increases. And it's great to have habits like that. We want to be loved and understood, and we want to love, and we want to understand. And mindfulness helps us to receive love and understanding, and it helps us to give love and understanding. Spirituality is another way of saying mindfulness. And it's a way to handle difficulties and to generate peace, happiness, and joy here and now on earth. Mindfulness, concentration, and insight create a clear mind to investigate reality with openness and non-discrimination. We want to know where we come from and where we're going, but most of all, we want to be happy. And we will practice the art of generating happiness. It's possible. And we want to live and thrive and reach our highest potential. And the answers to our deepest questions about life and death and meaning come from looking deeply, discovering our wrong views, how they generate suffering, and breaking free. Here's a quote from Thay. Breaking free of wrong views, we master the art of living happily in peace and freedom. And wrong views include, the most important one, I guess, is that we're separate. We're a separate, permanent self cut off from the rest of life. I think that's just an assumption that runs through our culture, and we make it without even knowing that we're making it. And the other one, another one is that we're only this body, and that when we die, we just cease to exist. And we're ignoring our interdependence and our interbeing. You know, we are the culmination of processes that have gone on for 13.8 billion years, have resulted in us, and we're part of the continuation of life and evolution that is continuing as the future that unfolds. And Thich Nhat Hanh said, I don't worry too much about the future. He says, I take care of the present moment. When I heard that, I just thought, oh, it's so good. I got through my whole life and I never heard anybody say that, take care of the present moment. And he said, but if we take care of the present moment, then when we get to the future, it'll be made out of the moments that we took care of. Another wrong view is that we think happiness lies outside of ourselves in the future, when in reality it's here and now inside of us to be manifested. We can transform the root causes of suffering in our time, individualism and consumption. We can transform that into the insight of interconnectedness, solidarity, togetherness. And the practices we'll explore can allow us to experience interbeing and liberate us from loneliness, anger, hatred, fear, craving, and despair. Mindfulness is a way of life, and we live it for ourselves, our species, and for the whole Earth community. If we awaken, we will generate a collective transformation of consciousness, and there will be hope. Insight is our promise and our hope for the future. And this is a wonderful journey, and we get to take it